Welcome to SVM Hoopin. I'm Dan Waisner alongside Christopher Heimerman, and we're talking postseason basketball of the Class 1A, 2A girls variety. Last Friday, the 1A, 2A regionals were released by the IHSA. We have teams in six different regionals in those two classes, 3 in 2A, 3 in 1A. Taking a look at 2A, the regional of most local interest would be the Newman Regional, where the Newman Comets are the second seed with the Riverdale Rams as the top seed. Christopher, how do you see that one playing out?
Well, I immediately look to the matchup between Newman and Fulton. Newman the 2 seed, Fulton the 3 seed. You gotta love the 2 versus 3s and the 4 versus 5s. It's the same way come March that we'll look at in the NCAA tournament. You love the games that are supposed to be hotly contested, and like you mentioned before we hopped on camera, Fulton's been a bit of a they've been a bit of a giant stomper lately. Newman, on the other hand, has kind of been going in the wrong direction, so it's going to be an opportunity for him right out of the chute. Obviously, several games between now and then, but a little vengeance on the table there for the Comets, and that game's on Wednesday that week leading into the championship, and of course, hey, show them what they've won, a shot at Riverdale, who obviously is head and shoulders above the rest, just from a quick perception.
We should mention they start the 4th, February 4th, be the first, kind of the play-in game or the quarterfinal, if you want to call West Carroll versus Morrison in that one. Most of the regionals run Monday, Wednesday, Friday. A couple of them go Monday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Sure.
It's sort of odd. But so we got about another week before this really gets going, but it's never too early to look ahead. I look at Riverdale. The one weakness Riverdale has is depth. I think they only have like 8 kids on the varsity. I assume maybe they have a sophomore team. They'll bring up a couple kids for the regional. But
right.
If a team can get Riverdale in foul trouble or something like that, especially at Newman, if Newman gets to that championship, get some home cooking calls at Newman,
yeah.
They may have a chance against Riverdale.
Yeah, stranger things have happened. And like you mentioned, the West Carroll-Morrison matchup, I mean, those are fun, where you've got 2 teams that really are evenly matched. Obviously both teams would love to have a few more wins at this point of the season, but, that's going to be a good matchup.
One of the other 2A regionals will be up in Byron, the top seed Oregon Hawks. This is a big northern type regional here. You have Oregon, Byron, and Winnebago mixed in with Rockford Christian, North Boone, Pecatonica. Oregon's the favorite here, but they certainly can't look over Byron. I know you were a big fan of Byron when you saw them play, but Oregon took them to task when they met.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought that Oregon would go into Byron and it'd be a knockdown, drag-out type battle, and it was 53-39 Oregon. They did what Oregon's capable of doing. They dictated the tempo, got up and down the floor, took Byron. Actually, that's what Byron likes to do. Yeah. So, I'm sure that they came away from that game, very frustrated that in that up-tempo game, they got outplayed by Oregon. Hopefully you folks aren't putting too much stock in anything we say to begin with, but the fact is the best preview for this game, the best insight to this game is going to be next Tuesday at 7:15. Basically, this game before the postseason game, Oregon at Byron next Tuesday at 7:15 on the Tigers' home floor. So if you want a good idea of how it's going to play out, what better way to get ready for it than to go check that out next week.
And looking way ahead, the winner of the Byron Regional plays the winner of the Newman Regional in the first round, or the semifinal of the sectional in Salmonock. Potentially, you could see Oregon, the top 2A team in the Big Northern, going against Riverdale, the top 2A team in the Three Rivers. Kind of the matchup, kind of like a conference championship matchup there between those two. It could be that to me would be a fun matchup between those two schools.
It would be. And going back to your previous point, I think that's a game where Oregon immediately kind of gets the nod a little bit because of the depth and how much they can wear out teams that are far deeper than Riverdale.
The only other 2A regional we have is Hall, and the only team we have there is Bureau Valley, who's coming in as a 5th seed against Hall, the 4th seed. Storm have had a tough season. It's kind of on the heels of another tough season. A couple years ago, they were one of the best teams in the area. Had the Player of the Year in Melanie Thompson. After that group left, the bottom just fell out. There just wasn't a class of girls that came in and refilled. So you've gotten a couple years here where you've had freshmen and sophomore playing a lot of varsity time.
Well, during the off season, so to speak, that's when a lot of the brick and mortar is laid. But what better way to go into the off season than getting a win against against a team from Spring Valley, not terribly far away? Go into the offseason feeling good about yourself. So, this is a game that if BV, can take down the the Devils. I mean, then you go into the postseason, being able to pitch kids on the fact that, hey, we won a game in the postseason last year. We're capable of winning in this program. So that in and of itself, it's an important game. Regardless of the fact that those teams probably won't have a long-term success in the postseason, it's a game certainly worth going and checking out.
All right, turning to 1A, the most local teams are at the 1A Polo Regional.
Mm-hmm.
Our favorite in the area, probably Prophetstown, in terms of, I look at them as probably the team that with the best chance to make a long run through the sectional, even possibly if they can get past Aquin and maybe down the state. I mean, overall, both on the boys and girls, I see Prophetstown as the favorite team there. But they have to get through the regional first, and most likely that's going to have to go through Erie, which we saw last year. Erie was able to upset Prophetstown late in the regular season. They turned around and played in the championship, and Prophetstown took care of them then. Yeah. But when you've got those two communities going against each other, anything can happen.
Well, I'm reading between your words a little bit, and I agree with you that this should be a regional that's Prophetstown's to lose. They're going to get the winner of Milledgeville, AFC, obviously a game that P-Town should win, and then, like you said, probably going to run into Erie in the finale. But Polo just took down an Amboy team that's hardly chopped liver. So don't be surprised if Polo gives Erie some issues in their semifinal.
Well, Polo's got Alitra Roberts, who's probably almost as prolific of a scorer as we have in the area. Yep. I mean, she really carries the load for that team in terms of scoring.
Yeah, she does a lot of things.
She does a lot of things, does a lot of rebounding and that kind of stuff. So if she gets going, and Erie we have seen play well against good teams, but then come out and play kind of poorly against teams that with not very good records. So they've been up and down. So you never know what kind of team you're going to get when they come out against Polo that Wednesday night.
Yeah, and looking ahead to the potential P-Town Aquin matchup, I'll go ahead and echo your bold prediction because I loved it. If they do run into each other, which will likely be the case, I like the fact that you went out on a limb and said whoever wins that game has a pretty good shot at the state title. Yeah. I think you're onto something.
Well, I think Aquin's the defending champion, and I think most people around state look at Aquin as the favorite to repeat with Sophie Bruner. When you got a Division I player at the 1A level, there's not many schools that can combat that. The one thing Prophetstown has is just a lineup full of girls that they run the system, they're well coached, they know what they're doing. If they can keep her from, putting up 35 points like you saw her do at the state tournament last year, which was just ridiculous, Prophetstown will have a chance against them. Yeah. And unfortunately, they'll meet up in the sectional semifinal rather than the sectional final. I'd prefer it to be the sectional final, just to add a little bit of excitement. That's assuming, Aquin will have to try to go through Eastland at the Aquin Regional. Eastland's the second seed there. We know Eastland's been having a strong season, but they've sort of hit a bump here lately, especially with Lexi McCumber coming down with injury.
Yeah, absolutely, and it is a big blow for them. They're going to need girls like Hannah Haig to step up and play tough in the post, and most likely Lexi McCumber is out for the season. She's optimistic that she's going to have a chance to come back and play in the postseason, but she's got that tricky injury. It's a stress fracture in her foot that the only way it's going to heal is if you literally just stay off the thing. And it's tough to gauge exactly how long it will take to mend, especially if you've never had one before. So they're definitely in for a challenge. As I touched on with Amboy before in that, Amboy in the Hinckley Big Rock Regional, excuse me. They get Indian Creek right out of the chute. Tuesday the 5th, 8 o'clock, and then they've got Hinckley Big Rock on their home floor waiting for them potentially in the championship game. So Amboy's got their work cut out for them as much as anybody, but especially after seeing them drop a game to Polo last night that they should have won. But then again, you take out the element of with it being a non-conference game, and every once in a while, a team will let their guard down a little bit, and the Marcos were able to sneak up on them. But definitely a coachable moment for the Amboy girls.
Amboy always seems to be in that position of all our area teams in basketball. For some reason, they get shipped away. Yeah. And they're shipped to Hinckley Big Rock instead of going to Polo, instead of going, Aquin would be a long ways for them. But, they're playing teams outside of their conference, teams that they probably haven't seen before. Hinckley Big Rock's usually a pretty strong team. And they'd even be going to a different sectional if they won that. So it's sort of strange. They got shifted completely out of the area.
Well, the good news is they got a lot of veterans on that team, so they should be used to it by now.
Yep, that's true. But this is the fun time of the year. A lot of smiles and a lot of tears. Like we always kind of say, we're hitting to the point of the year where we spend a lot of time talking to kids that are crying because only one team can win it all. Mm-hmm. But it's also the most fun because teams are playing their best. Everyone's playing their hardest. should be a fun couple weeks.
Yeah, P-Town, Oregon, potentially loaded for the long haul. I might see smiles for them right through the final shoot, so we'll see what shakes down.
All right, we'll see you at the games.